Stop what you're doing right now. This is the story of a woman who traded a life of betrayed luxury for an honest struggle, only to have her past, and the spitting image of her ex-husband, walk right into her path 6 years later. He wants the truth. She built her world on silence. If you believe a woman's strength can rebuild anything, hit that like button. Your likes fuel our channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the human heart. 6 years later, the ghost of the past. San Francisco vibrated that afternoon, as it rarely did. The sky, a dense blue, seemed to press down on the city's old Victorian rooftops with a light that felt almost solid. The narrow, curving streets, like unresolved memories, echoed with the sound of hurried footsteps from tourists and locals. Voices mingled in different languages. Laughter, camera clicks, distant cable car bells, and in the middle of this history-saturated scene was Ethan Cole. He walked aimlessly, his shoulders rigid, his hands shoved into the pockets of his gray coat, his brow slightly furrowed. His phone vibrated in his trousers, but he didn't pull it out. Not today. It was the anniversary of his divorce. 6 years exactly since he signed those papers with black ink and cold hands. Not that he counted, but he knew. His body knew. He had allowed himself a walk through the North Beach district purely out of instinct, or perhaps as a form of self-punishment. He had avoided these streets since Clara left, since her name became a kind of ghost, whispering through the windows of the empty house. But something that afternoon brought him back. Maybe it was the smell of autumn, maybe the silence behind the noise, or simply the weight of a loneliness that no longer surprised him. He slowly walked up Lombard Street. His eyes scanned curved glass storefronts, moss-covered stone walls, children running with ice cream dripping from their fingers. He stopped in front of a used bookstore, pulled out an old copy of Kerouac, and flipped through it without reading. The paper smelled of time. The poetry, if it still lived there, no longer touched him. It was then that everything stopped. Not time, but something inside him. An invisible force rotated his face to the side, as if a silent hand pushed his chin, and he saw, there, a few yards away, walking in the opposite direction, was her. Clara. The name formed in his mind with the weight of a contained blow. She hadn't seen him yet. She walked distractedly, holding the hand of a boy who must have been fetos, maybe 6. The boy looked around with a serene curiosity, his brow slightly furrowed, his body leaning to one side, as if trying to absorb the world. Ethan felt his knees buckle an inch. The boy was his portrait, not a vague or generic resemblance. It was him, those intense brown eyes, too large for his face, that slightly arched brow, like someone carrying questions he doesn't yet know how to ask. The firm chin, the way he walked, hands loose, sure-footed, the slight forward tilt of his neck, as if he were always listening for what wasn't being said. Clara looked to the side and saw him. There was no fear, no gasp, no flight. She simply stopped for a second, her eyes locked onto his with a mute, undecipherable force. It wasn't anger, nor fear. It was something more solid, a wall of silence between two worlds that once loved each other and now looked at each other as strangers. Ethan took a step. His heart hammered so loudly he felt his temples throb. He opened his mouth. The word was about to come out, but the air seemed to fail. "Clara?" he tried, but the voice didn't reach his lips. She squeezed the boy's hand more firmly, looked away, and began to walk. Not fast, not hurried, but with an irreversible decision, like someone closing a door without making a sound. Ethan wanted to run. He wanted to shout. He wanted to call the boy by a name he didn't even know. but his legs wouldn't obey. They were nailed to the ground, like the roots of a rotten tree. Everything inside him screamed, but his body refused to react. The crowd swelled, tourists in colorful hats, students with backpacks, a couple laughing loudly, a dog barking. And in seconds, she was gone, vanished like smoke in the middle of the street. He searched with his eyes everywhere. He spun his body. He looked desperately, but there was no sign, neither of the woman, nor of the boy. Nothing. Only the echo of a life he didn't know existed. He leaned against a stone wall, trying to breathe. His chest hurt, not like a heart attack, but as if someone had opened his ribs with bare hands and ripped something out from within. He was cold and sweaty. His hands trembled. He tried to rationalize. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe the boy just looked like him. Kids look alike. It wasn't a certainty. But then he remembered the eyes. Those brown eyes, identical to his own at the same age. And there was no way to pretend. Ethan Cole, renowned architect, son of one of the most influential families in California real estate. He was stopped in the middle of the street like any ordinary man, facing an old wound that never healed, and that was now bleeding again. Deeper, uglier, realer. A man who had everything, then lost everything, and now discovered that perhaps he had never known anything. The city continued around him as if nothing had happened, because to the world, truly, nothing happened. Just another man standing in front of a bookstore, just another pale face in the crowd, just another story no one saw happen. But for him, right there, in that instant, reality had cracked, and through that crack, he saw something he couldn't unsee. Before the crack, the betrayal, 6 years earlier. Before the crack, before the silence, before Mateo. There was a woman trying to hold together what was already collapsing. Clara would get up early, make coffee, set the table with 2 mugs, even when he left without touching either. Trying was the verb she conjugated most often alone in those days. Trying to smile, trying to talk, trying to get Ethan to look at her the same way he looked at his projects of glass and concrete, with fascination and attention. But his eyes had become foreign maps. There was no path left, only walls. Ethan came home late, always smelling of cigarette smoke and boredom. He said he was overloaded with the new bid, with the firm, with his father's pressure. But Clara knew he was overloading himself with his own coldness. She felt like someone noticing a roof leak, that something in their house was crumbling inside. That morning, a fine rain tapped against the glass windows of their house in the Marina district. Clara looked at her reflection in the mirror. Sunken eyes, dry mouth, a trace of forgotten makeup beneath her chin. She decided not to cry. She showered. She pulled her hair into a hasty bun. She grabbed a coat, and she left. She carried a bag with freshly baked turnovers and an envelope. Inside, a small, symbolic gift. A sketch of the project they designed together in their first month of marriage, on tracing paper. They never built it, but Clara kept it. It was more than a draft. It was memory. It was roots. I'm going to the firm. I'm going to surprise him. She said it aloud, to no one. Perhaps to convince herself. She took the subway, got off at Civic Center Plaza, and walked to the commercial building where the architecture firm, Cole and Associates, was located. She climbed 3 flights of stairs, each one slower than the last. Her heart wasn't beating fast. It was shrinking. Each step felt like a question. The hallway was silent. The main door was ajar. She could have knocked, but she pushed the door with her fingers and slowly walked in. Her voice was the first thing, low, husky, laughing. If we keep this up, We're going to end up designing the wrong kind of bed, she said, amidst muffled laughter. Then, the image. She saw Ethan sitting at the drafting table, amidst papers and rulers, his shirt half open, the secretary's fingers between the buttons. She saw the two of them close, laughing, with their eyes closed. She saw her hand sliding down his neck, as if it already knew the way. She saw the body that was once hers, belonging to another presence, and something in her broke. But silently, Clara did not scream. She did not run. She did not slam the door shut. She did not throw the envelope to the floor. She simply backed away, as if the scene before her were a slow-motion fire, as if looking too long meant letting the smell of betrayal soak into her skin. She walked down the 3 flights of stairs with chilling dignity, the bag of turnovers still in her hand. The envelope remained. She walked out of the building like someone leaving a burning house, but on the outside, she was intact. Inside, there was no roof left, nor floor. She hailed a taxi and didn't look back. That night, Ethan came home as usual, late, exhausted, without looking at her. He found a cold dinner on the table and a letter on the plate. 3 lines. I don't want explanations. I want distance. I want a divorce. She wasn't in the bedroom, nor the bathroom, nor the house. Ethan might not have understood at first. Perhaps he thought it was a bluff, a crisis, a whim. But she didn't return. The next day, Clara's lawyer called. 2 days later, the separation papers were filed. And for the first time in years, Ethan perceived the silence. Not the silence of someone's absence, but the silence of someone who never returns. Interactive question. Clara made a split-second decision to walk away without confronting Ethan. Do you think her silent exit showed ultimate strength, or was it a missed opportunity for her to speak her truth and defend herself? Share your thoughts in the comments. The secret. Mateo. The news arrived without warning. On a soft, late spring day. A missed period. A strange feeling in her body. A sharp intuition. She bought a drugstore test and waited alone in the bathroom of the house she had shared with Ethan. The 2 lines appeared with cruel speed, unmistakably. The answer was there. She was not alone. She never would be again. She sat on the cold tile floor, the test between her fingers, her legs bent, her heart trying to organize its own beats. She should have cried. She didn't. She touched her flat stomach with the palm of her hand and whispered, without knowing why. You came. The news could have been light, but an old shadow covered everything. A memory flashed in her mind. Clear, direct, threatening. If you ever get pregnant and we split, I will take that child from you. The Coles have power. Never forget that. He had said that one night during an argument, long before the betrayal, when fighting already replaced intimacy, when she dared to say she dreamed of children. And he, with the coldness of one who knows the weight of the family name, cut the dream in half with that dry, unshakable sentence. At the time, Clara laughed. She thought it was an exaggeration. But now, with those 2 lines on the test, the phrase resonated with a different gravity. It was a threat, and more. It was the memory of the man he truly was. She spent the following days in silence. She left the house only for appointments, always at off-peak hours. She avoided friends, neighbors, even her family. Her small belly could still be hidden. But the fear grew. She knew what the Coles were capable of. She knew about the power of Ethan's father, his connections with judges, his political influence, the way they silenced scandals and manipulated court decisions. She had heard stories. She had seen it happen to her cousin, who lost custody of her son for being emotionally unstable. Instability, in that case, meant trying to leave a sick marriage. Then she understood. She could not stay. The decision came one sleepless night. Sitting on the edge of the bed, her hands clutching the pillow to her chest. She took stock. She had little money saved. A gold bracelet her grandmother had left her. Some clothes, and the instinct to protect that little heart, beating inside her. She called her mother. In Oakland. She didn't explain much. She just said, "I need to leave." "Today? Just the two of us. Can you?" There was silence on the other end. Then, a brief answer. Yes. She packed in an hour. Few clothes, documents, the pregnancy test hidden between the pages of a poetry book. She left the house before sunrise, called a taxi. She didn't look back. The apartment, once a home, was now an empty shell. Every corner still had his scent, and she could no longer bear that expensive perfume, which hid so much venom. She reached the terminal with a racing pulse, bought a one-way ticket. Boarding the bus, she sat near the window, wrapped in her coat, like an improvised armor. She looked out. As the vehicle pulled away, the streets of San Francisco slowly faded. Every street lamp, a memory left behind. She arrived in Oakland shortly after noon. Her mother was at the door. She hugged her without asking questions, without demanding explanations. Just hugged her, tightly, silent. "Present," Clara cried. Finally, a muffled cry. No scandalous tears. It was more a release than a desperation. In the first few days, she didn't leave the room. She slept a lot. Or little. She spent hours with her hand on her belly, trying to imagine a future she couldn't quite see. Her mother cooked for two, spoke little. It was as if she knew that silence could also be a hug. When she finally spoke, it was a Sunday. "Do you want to tell him?" Clara took a long time to answer. Then she shook her head. "No, I can't. He's the father. He's the danger." Her mother didn't insist. The rebuilding. Clara Aranda. The weeks turned into months. Her belly grew. Along with it, her strength. Clara found a small technical drawing course offered by a local NGO. She started attending. Then she got an internship at a modest architecture studio with a kind, widowed architect who taught her more than any university. There, she wasn't the ex-wife of the coal heir. She was just Clara. Talented, thirsty to start over. The pregnancy was difficult. Nausea, low blood pressure, insomnia. But she resisted. Every beat of the baby's heart was a reminder that she was alive, that choosing to flee was choosing to live. Mateo was born on a hot September afternoon. The labor was long, and when she finally held him in her arms, everything around her silenced. There was no pain, no fear, only him. His eyes opened, brown, immense, and they looked at her as if they already knew her. Clara smiled. "You really came." That night, she wrote a single sentence in her diary. "From now on, everything is for him," and she kept her word. From the day she first held Mateo in her arms, Clara never wavered again. Not because there was no fear. It existed. Pulsating, sleepless nights, and uncertain afternoons. But she learned to use fear as fuel. Every step, every achievement, was taken with the firm hands of one who carries her own world in her lap. Mateo grew up surrounded by affection. There were no luxuries, but there was solid ground. There was no powerful surname, but there was a clean, honest name. Clara learned to make lentil soup in silence, to deal with night fevers without panicking, to tell stories of enchanted worlds, while her own eyes were red from exhaustion. At first, she lived with her mother in a small apartment on the second floor of an old building in the Piedmont Avenue neighborhood. The room she shared with her son had peeling paint, but the windows overlooked a sky that seemed to understand her silent prayers. When Matteo turned 2, she got a spot for him in the municipal daycare. Clara started working full-time at the same studio where she had interned, now as a project assistant. 3 years later, she received a partial scholarship to an architecture college. At night, she would sit in the tiny living room and sketch freehand while Matteo slept. The lines she drew were no longer just facades or structures. They were maps of her survival. She had learned to transform absence into foundation, pain into concrete. Everything that once broke her was now part of what held her up. She excelled. Professors saw something unusual in her, a rare blend of technical precision and contained emotion. She designed houses that seemed to understand people's emptiness. She chased every missed class. She did assignments while washing dishes. She studied during pediatrician appointments. She read at the edge of the bed while Matteo asked for one more minute before sleeping. She earned a full scholarship in the 3rd semester. Then, her first paid internship. And with that, she rented a small apartment just for them. 2 rooms, a narrow hallway, a balcony where she planted basil and lavender. She never told anyone about Ethan. Her college classmates imagined she was widowed. Some thought she was a single mother by choice. Clara didn't correct them. She didn't lie. But she didn't give anything away either. She kept that part of her story like someone carefully holding broken glass, cautious not to cut her fingers. For Matteo's birthdays, she baked simple cakes and filled the apartment with recycled balloons. In the photos, only the 2 of them. Mother and son, a silent portrait of everything she had built without fanfare, without help, without surnames. Sometimes, she dreamed of him. Not Ethan, but the child Matteo could have been if he had grown up with his father's presence. In some dreams, he ran in a huge garden taking 2 hands. In others, he said, "Mom, why didn't he come?" And Clara would wake up sweating, swallowing a guilt she wasn't sure was justified. But she never doubted. She never let the decision to have fled slip into regret. She knew what she had done. She knew why she had done it. And she knew that by doing it, she not only saved herself, but also saved her son from growing up in the shadow of a name that never meant protection. At the age of 5, Matteo first asked, "Mom, why don't I have a dad?" Clara knelt, held his face between her hands, and replied, "Because you have me, and I never left you." Matteo didn't answer. He just leaned his head on her shoulder, and in that hug, Clara understood that love was also a language spoken with presence. In her final year of college, she presented her thesis, a social housing project focused on single mothers. The jury was silent for a few seconds after the presentation. Then they applauded. Her advisor hugged her with teary eyes. She left the room with the feeling of having rebuilt everything that had once been demolished. She got a job at an architecture firm focused on social projects. It wasn't Ethan's award-winning firm, but it was a space where her voice had weight. She bought a used bicycle. She rode Matteo to school. On Saturdays, they frequented the same corner ice cream parlor. She always ordered vanilla. He, mint chocolate chip. It was the only fixed habit of the week. The ritual of remembering that life also needed sweetness. And so, with small, dignified steps, Clara got there. A firm woman, mother of a child who smiled with his whole body. An admired professional, owner of her own story. She won, and she didn't need anyone to see it for it to be true. But now someone saw the return, stepping onto her ground. The image of the boy wouldn't leave Ethan's mind, so sharp it hurt. The features, the gait, the attentive silence he himself had at 5. The eyes. God. The eyes. It was as if time had folded in on itself and given Ethan back the mirror of a past he never lived, but that was now looking at him on the streets of San Francisco, with an relentless naturalness. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't projection. It was the truth. In the days following the fleeting encounter, Ethan tried to convince himself that he didn't need to know more. He tried, because he knew what would come next. Guilt, fear, shame. But he failed. In his office, he drew lines on blueprints that led nowhere. At night, he read reports he didn't retain. He started sentences and left them unfinished. When someone asked if he was okay, he automatically replied with a clear. But inside, everything was noise. He hired someone discreet to investigate. He asked them to track Clara, but without invading, without causing a scandal. 2 days later, he received an envelope in hand. Oakland, Piedmont Avenue neighborhood. Her mother's name as the apartment renter. The boy's school. A first semester report card. Registration photo. Name, Mateo Aranda. He didn't carry his last name, but the face was enough. Ethan sat there, the document on the table, like someone looking at the file of a life he never participated in. And with that, the inevitable question. What would he do with it? He called his chauffeur, asked him to prepare the car for a trip. "I need time to think," he said. But what he wanted, deep down, was time to undo. The trip to Oakland was long, though short in miles. The car felt smaller, the air denser. He didn't speak during the 4-hour drive. He only watched the landscape change with an immobile face. He thought about Clara, the courage she had to disappear, the courage he never had to be different. He arrived at the address. A discreet street, low buildings, kids playing on the sidewalk. He got out slowly, his hands clammy. He climbed the steps with silent steps. The doorbell was simple. Round. He rang it once. And waited. When the door opened, the image before him disarmed him. Clara. Her hair shorter, her face more mature. But the eyes, the same. Intense. Clear. Strong. She didn't seem surprised. She looked at him like someone who was already expecting him. Like someone who already knew this moment would come one day. "Ethan," she said. Without emotion. He didn't answer immediately. He just looked at her as if he still couldn't believe she was there. Real? Alive? Unreachable? "He's my son, isn't he?" The question came out like a stone. There was no accusatory tone, only truth, and an old fear mixed with a new one. Clara didn't look away. She didn't move. She just took a deep breath. Firm. "Yes, Mateo is your son, but he is my world." The words fell between them like a verdict. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence grew louder. The sound of the street in the background. A dog barking. A ball bouncing on the asphalt. Everything seemed distant, as if they were isolated inside a thick pane of glass. Ethan tried to organize a thought, but his body spoke first. His hands trembled, his throat dry. The weight in his chest. He didn't know if he could enter. He didn't know if he should. "Why didn't you tell me?" But there was a weariness there that hadn't existed before. "Do you remember what you told me a year before it all ended? If you ever get pregnant, and we split, I will take that child from you. The Coles have power. Never forget that." Ethan closed his eyes. He remembered. The phrase was real. He said it in anger. On any night. And he never thought she would take it seriously. "Clara, You don't need to explain yourself," she interrupted him, with a gentle but firm gesture. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because he needs me, the whole. And I could only be whole away from you." The words were like clean blades. There were no shouts, no tears, but every syllable carried the pain of years. "Can I see him?" She hesitated for this first time. Her eyes flickered. Her body moved slightly. "He's at the park with my mother. He'll be back in half an hour. You can see him, but don't confuse things." "What things?" She looked at him deeply and replied, "You can be a father, but I am everything he knows, and I won't allow that to change." Ethan nodded. His gaze dropped. There was no room for dispute there. Only one possible path: to enter the other's territory with respect. And he, finally, was ready to tread carefully. And in that moment, standing on the threshold that had been closed to him for so long, Ethan felt what he had never truly felt. Guilt. Not the theatrical performative guilt, but the guilt that hurts because it recognizes, that burns because it's true, that falls silent because it knows it was wrong. Clara stepped aside, making room for him to enter. And just like that, without rituals, without hugs, without promises, the story began to reopen. Final reflection: the price of presence. Ethan entered Clara's apartment with the same feeling of invading a sanctuary. It was a small space, modest, but clean. Alive. The furniture didn't match, but every object seemed to have been placed there with an intimate purpose. There were children's drawings taped to the refrigerator, a plant on the windowsill, a crooked lamp next to a worn armchair, and in the center of it all, the subtle scent of lavender, the same one she used on her pillow when they still slept together, although now it seemed like a different perfume. More mature, more her own. Ethan saw what Clara meant. The future wasn't about redemption. It was about responsibility. And beside that woman he once loved, he finally understood that she wasn't just the mother of his son. She was unbreakable. And that he could never achieve. He understood it. Not in the arrogant way of one who finally understands a woman, but as one who, after a long time, recognizes the exact void he left. And the hardest thing to accept was that Clara was no longer in that void. She filled it alone. With silence. With struggle. With her own hands. With the precise architecture of one who learned to build from the rubble. He saw it now. In every one of her gestures. In the way she organized Matteo's life with a firm and loving routine. In the way she spoke with the parents of his schoolmates with a confident voice, unafraid of judgment. In the way she wore simple clothes that looked tailor-made, as if her body had learned to fit exactly where it wanted to. Clara flourished, and he was only a spectator. Ethan began to accompany Matteo more often. He took his son to the park on alternating Saturdays. Clara's mother supervised him with an eagle eye, never hostile, but always watchful. Clara trusted her instinct. It was like an invisible net of protection. The boy would never be completely alone with Ethan. There would always be a watchful eye nearby, and Ethan never complained about it. He accepted it, because he knew he had no ibouat to ask for more than that. One morning, after dropping Matteo off at school, Ethan saw Clara across the street. She was wearing a blue skirt, low heels, a folder under her arm, and a cup of coffee in her hand. She was talking on the phone, concentrated, walking fast. She was so clear, so solid in that instant, that Ethan stopped to watch. He saw a woman he didn't know, a woman that time had sculpted with precision. She crossed the street, hung up the phone, and saw him. She stopped in front of him. Her eyes weren't cold. They were serene, like someone who no longer expects anything, and precisely because of that, doesn't need to protect herself. "Do you need something?" she asked simply. "No," he replied, hesitant. I was going to say you look different. I'm alive. That's it. And you're learning to look." She walked past without waiting for an answer, and that resonated in him as a reminder. There are pains that don't heal. They transform. And Clara transformed. Later that same day, Ethan opened his laptop and searched her name. He found an article. Clara Aranda, architect and urban planner, winner of a regional award for a sustainable social housing project. The text spoke of her with reverence. It mentioned her education, her trajectory, her focus on vulnerable communities, without influential surnames, without inheritance. Everything was merit. Every paragraph was a confirmation of what he was already beginning to accept. Clara didn't just survive. She became someone else. And him? He remained rich. He continued signing projects, accumulating awards, attending gala dinners. But everything he carried in his pockets, the contacts, the promises, the contracts, now seemed lighter than a dry leaf compared to the concrete weight of the presents that Clara earned with her own story. The Cole power? Powerless here. Because Clara was no longer accessible through influence. She could not be bent by surnames. She was not for sale. Ethan understood. Not because he wanted to, but because he had no choice. And looking at Mateo, watching him grow with the tenderness of one who was loved unconditionally, he understood that everything Clara built, the balance, the clarity, the unconditional love, is not bought. It is not inherited. It is only earned. And he was too late. Interactive question. Now tell me, if you were in Clara's place, would you have done the same? Would you have left without telling him about the pregnancy? Comment below. I genuinely want to know what you would do, and if this story touched you in any way, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. See you in the next story. Part 2. The Architecture of Redemption. We are back with the highly requested continuation. If you thought Ethan Cole's realization was the end, you were wrong. The real story is about what a powerful man does when he realizes his power means nothing compared to the quiet strength of the woman he betrayed. If you're rooting for Ethan to finally step up, give this video a thumbs up. The new blueprint. Responsibility, not control. Ethan left Clara's small apartment that day, carrying a burden heavier than any financial loss, the weight of his own failure. The realization that Clara had built a life, a superior life, without him, was a profound shock to his system. He returned to San Francisco, but the towering glass office of Cole & Associates now felt cold, sterile, and meaningless. He understood that he couldn't simply buy his way back into Mateo's life, nor could he purchase Clara's forgiveness. His redemption required a completely different kind of architecture, one built on service, transparency, and respect. The first thing Ethan did was not about Clara, but about cleaning his own foundation. He severed ties with several influential but morally questionable partners who had been the source of his father's, and his own, arrogance. He quietly restructured his firm, redirecting a significant portion of its resources toward a new social impact division. He knew where to start. Clara's thesis. He found the public records of her award-winning sustainable housing project for single mothers. It was brilliant, practical, and desperately needed funding. He did not call her. He did not send an email. He chose the slow, respectful approach. He contacted the NGO where Clara worked, presenting himself strictly as an interested investor and architect, seeking to fund a pilot program in Oakland. He used his connections to streamline permits and secure a large, suitable plot of land, all while meticulously hiding his identity as the ultimate benefactor. He was simply an anonymous resource, clearing the bureaucratic weeds so Clara's vision could grow. An unexpected partnership. 3 months later, Clara called him. Her voice, usually serene, was tinged with disbelief. "Ethan," she began, formal and reserved. "I just received confirmation for the Oakland pilot project. It's fully funded, and the land acquisition is complete. It's moving faster than anything I've ever seen. The anonymous donor is demanding we adhere strictly to the original design. My design. Do you know anything about this? Ethan leaned back in his leather chair, a genuine, unpracticed smile touching his lips for the first time in years. I know of the project. It's an exceptional piece of work, Clara. It deserves to be built. It's more than deserved. It's a miracle, she countered. The paperwork mentions a consulting architect from an undisclosed firm who advocated fiercely for the design's integrity. They insisted the project lead, Clara Aranda, must have full creative control. Was that you? Ethan sighed, knowing he couldn't lie. The person they spoke to was me. It was the least I could do, considering my firm, my family, has always built for the privileged. Your work is what architecture should be. Clara was silent for a long moment. It wasn't the silence of fear, but of processing. You used your power to clear a path, not to block one, she finally said. That's a new architecture for you, Ethan. It's a necessary one, he admitted. This led to an unspoken agreement. Ethan never mentioned Matteo in relation to the project. Clara never asked for more funding. They began meeting regularly, but strictly on professional grounds: site visits, engineering reviews, and municipal presentations. Ethan wore simple field boots instead of his expensive Italian loafers. He listened more than he spoke. He saw Clara in her element, sharp, decisive, and commanding the respect of seasoned contractors. She wasn't just surviving. She was creating impact, building the bridge to Matteo. The professional collaboration naturally softened the edges of their personal divide. Seeing Ethan consistently prioritize her mission slowly allowed him small increases in his time with Matteo. It started with supervised park visits, then transitioned to him dropping Matteo off at his Oakland school. Ethan never overstepped. He brought simple gifts, like rare geology books or a high-quality set of colored pencils. He never talked about money or the past. He simply talked about Matteo's world, the texture of the soil in the playground, the mechanics of the cable car system, the logic behind the universe. Matteo, in turn, began to trust this new, quiet man. He didn't see the CEO. He saw the person who knew how to draw cool bridges and could explain why the Golden Gate Bridge was red and not gold. One Saturday, while they were at the local hardware store buying supplies for a birdhouse project, Matteo, looking at a bag of concrete mix, asked, "Dad, why do buildings need foundations?" Ethan knelt down, meeting his son's eyes. "Buildings need foundations, Matteo, because a foundation is what you lay down first. It's the strong, honest part that no one sees, but it has to hold up everything else: the walls, the roof, the windows. If the foundation is weak, the whole house will fall apart in a storm." Matteo nodded, understanding. "My house has a very strong foundation, right, Dad?" Ethan paused, a lump forming in his throat. He thought of Clara, the concrete she poured with her own hands, the silent strength she endured. "Yes, Matteo, your house has the strongest foundation I have ever seen. Your mother built it to last forever." Interactive. Question: Ethan is finally starting to understand that true strength is quiet. What do you think is the biggest lesson he has learned from watching Clara build her life from the rubble? Tell us your thought in the comments. The final foundation. A year after the emotional confrontation, the social housing project was nearing completion. On the dedication day, Clara stood at the podium. She gave a powerful speech about dignity, self-sufficiency, and the importance of having a safe place to land after a storm. Ethan stood at the back of the crowd, watching. He saw Matteo, nestled close to Clara's mother, clapping fiercely. He saw Clara, radiating the quiet confidence of a true leader. At the reception, Clara walked over to him, holding a champagne flute. "The board insisted on recognizing the anonymous donor," she said, her eyes challenging him. "They wanted a plaque, a dedication ceremony. I told them no. But I think you should know, the first building in the complex, the community center, is officially named the Aranda Center. Ethan's eyes widened. Clara, that's incredible. You deserve that. The lead donor finally conceded, but they left a condition. She continued, a slight, genuine smile finally reaching her eyes. They insisted that the dedication plaque for the entire project state, built upon a foundation of integrity and commitment. They said it was a non-negotiable term. Ethan nodded, recognizing his own words from his past business philosophy, now redefined by her reality. I can live with that. She set her glass down, her voice low and intimate. Ethan, you never asked for anything. You just gave. You gave Mateo time, and you gave me respect. That's more than any inheritance. She paused, then handed him a set of keys. Simple, silver fobs. My mother is moving into the community complex's dedicated family unit. Mateo and I are staying in our small apartment in Oakland. These are the keys to the new playground. Mateo wants you to help him finish building the final foundation for the swing set tomorrow morning. He says you're better at mixing concrete than anyone he knows. Ethan looked at the keys. Not the ornate bronze key of their past, but simple, silver fobs that smelled faintly of new metal and possibility. A key to the simple, hard work of being present. I'll be there, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He understood. He didn't get Clara back, not in the romantic sense. He earned something better, a clean slate, a shared purpose, and a small, hard-won place in his son's real world. His former self, the arrogant heir, had chased a kingdom. His current self, the quiet, humble father, was content with a single, perfectly poured foundation. He looked across the lot, where Mateo was running toward him, waving an orange flag. He had finally found his true architecture, meaningful conclusion, and call to action. This story of Ethan Cole and Clara Aranda teaches us that true power lies not in controlling what you have, but in humbly serving what you lost. Ethan realized his colossal wealth was nothing compared to Clara's courage, and his redemption began only when he learned to build according to her blueprints, not his own. Clara's silence was her shield, her struggle was her foundation, and in the end, her integrity became the most powerful force in the room. What do you think of Ethan's final act of redemption? Do you believe he truly changed, or is he simply trying to buy his son's love in a more sophisticated way? Let us know your honest opinion in the comments below. If you loved this powerful sequel, like the video and subscribe for more stories of profound human transformation. Check out the video appearing on your screen now for another amazing tale. Part 3. The Ultimate Test of Integrity. The story is far from over. Just when Ethan and Clara thought they had found their peace, a final, ruthless challenge arrives from the very past they tried to escape. This time, the battle isn't for love, but for the soul of the Cole legacy. Do you think Ethan can resist the power of his family name one last time? Let me know your prediction in the comments below. Subscribe and hit the bell to see if your prediction is right. The Return of the Matriarch. 6 months after the dedication of the Aranda Center, the new rhythm of life was firm. Shared co-parenting, professional respect, and a quiet, budding affection between Ethan and Clara. An affection built on shared purpose rather than past passion. However, the silence from the Cole family matriarch, Mrs. Sterling, was not a sign of peace, but of plotting. One crisp afternoon, Ethan received a call to an urgent meeting at the family's private club in Nob Hill. He walked into the reserved salon to find his mother, impeccable and severe as ever, seated across from the family's senior counsel. But the biggest surprise was the large, leather-bound folder on the table. "Ethan, your father's health has deteriorated rapidly. The doctors give him 6 months at best," Mrs. Sterling stated, bypassing all pleasantries. "The family trust requires a seamless transition of power." She tapped the folder. "This is the official deed to Cole and Associates, the controlling shares of the entire Cole global real estate empire, and the keys to the chairmanship of the family trust." Ethan stared at the fortune before him, the very kingdom he had renounced. "I thought my sister Sophia was the designated successor." "Sophia wants to breed horses in Wyoming," Mrs. Sterling scoffed. "She lacks the ruthlessness required. You, Ethan, have always possessed the architect's vision and the Cole ambition. You merely misdirected it. It's time to come home, son. The power you gave up is waiting for you." The power was intoxicating. It was everything he'd trained for, everything he'd once desired. With this, he could fund all of Clara's projects tenfold, shield Mateo from all future worries, and change the world's landscape overnight. But the condition, unspoken yet palpable, hung heavy in the air. "And what about my social impact division? What about the Aranda Center?" Ethan asked, his voice steady. Mrs. Sterling's face tightened. "Charity is best left to foundations, not to the controlling entity. You will dissolve that frivolous division, and you will cease this public co-parenting farce with that Aranda woman. The Cole heir does not build playgrounds with ex-secretaries." The ultimatum was clear: the crown or the conscience. The architect's counter-proposal. Ethan walked out of the club with the folder in his hands, feeling the cold weight of the empire. He didn't drive to his office. He drove to the Aranda Center. He found Clara in the community center's sunny kitchen, reviewing blueprints while Mateo drew silently beside her. He placed the imposing folder on the simple wooden table. "My mother just offered me everything. The chairmanship, the empire, the full power of the Cole name," he stated, his eyes locking onto hers. "The condition is that I dissolve the social impact division and cut all non-essential ties to you and Mateo." Clara didn't flinch. She simply finished marking a dimension on her blueprint, then looked up. Her eyes were serene, without judgment, almost expectant. "And what did you say, Ethan?" "I told her I needed time to consider the best use of the assets," he replied. He wasn't lying. He had a plan, one that risked everything. "I only need one thing from you, Clara. Your trust and your full commitment to a plan that will burn my world down, but will solidify yours." Clara slid the folder back across the table. "You have my trust, Ethan. I already watched you burn your world down for the right reasons once. Show me the new blueprint." The next day, Ethan walked back into the private club. Mrs. Sterling was waiting, flanked by lawyers. "I accept the chairmanship and the power," Ethan announced, his voice ringing with the authority they demanded. "But there is a condition from my end." He laid out a contract. It was meticulously drafted, using every legal loophole he knew. "I will take the reins, but the Cole Trust will immediately endow the Aranda Foundation with a non-revocable, legally untouchable fund. This fund will be solely managed by Clara Aranda and her board, dedicated to building social housing and urban renewal projects, operating entirely outside of the Cole global structure. It will be the single largest philanthropic donation in the family's history, and it will be non-negotiable." Mrs. Sterling was furious. "You are giving away family money to that little project." "I am investing in the family's future legacy, Mother. Unlike you, I understand that the true power of the Cole name should lie in its integrity and its service, not its ruthlessness. I will take the power, but I will use it to support the foundation that embodies the principles I believe in. This is the new Cole legacy, and it begins now, with the Aranda Foundation. Take it or leave it. But know this, if you refuse, the entire firm will see the internal documents detailing your past attempts to illegally separate me from my son. I will take the power, or I will take the truth. your choice. Facing the certain public and legal ruin that Ethan held in his hands, a ruin far greater than an uncomfortable charitable donation, Mrs. Sterling's resolve finally crumbled. She signed. Her hand trembled, not with weakness, but with suppressed fury at her defeat. A new foundation, a new love. Ethan took the control, but he used it for good. Within a year, he had implemented his vision. Cole Global focused on sustainable urban development, and the Aranda Foundation became the standard-bearer for compassionate architecture. On a rainy Saturday, after dropping Mateo off at a friend's house, Ethan and Clara found themselves standing in the empty original Aranda Center Community Hall. They were both soaked, laughing at the chaos of the day. "You won, Ethan," Clara said softly, looking up at him. "You took the crown, but you made it serve the conscience. I never thought I would see that day." "I didn't win, Clara. We built a foundation that finally holds," he corrected, reaching out and gently touching her cheek. "You taught me that integrity is the only material that doesn't crack under pressure." He didn't pull out a diamond ring. He didn't offer a grand transactional gesture. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn piece of tracing paper, the same sketch of the project they designed together in their first month of marriage, the one she carried that day she left. "I want to build this now, Clara. Not a building for the firm, but a home for us. Designed by us. Built on honesty. No secrets, no conditions, just a foundation of truth." Clara's eyes welled up. She didn't cry then, but she did now. Not from pain, but from the realization that the old Ethan was finally, completely gone. "The design is perfect," she whispered, "and the site is exactly where we stand." They kissed, not with the urgency of their lost youth, but with the quiet, profound promise of two architects finally ready to build their shared, authentic life. The story of Ethan and Clara became a legend, a testament to the fact that it takes real power to let go of control, and that the strongest legacy is not measured in wealth, but in the love and quiet, honest presence you leave behind. Final call to action. What kind of name should Ethan and Clara give to their new home, symbolizing both their past betrayal and their future unity? Share your creative name ideas in the comments below. If this story inspired you to believe in second chances and true transformation, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us tell more stories that move and inspire. stop scrolling. Before you dive into this emotional roller coaster of buried secrets and unexpected reunions, hit that subscribe button, give this video a huge thumbs up, and tell us in the comments, what is the most shocking discovery you've ever made about your past? The unthinkable reunion at St. Michael's. The morning air at St. Michael's Medical Center, London, was thick with the familiar smell of antiseptic and the stale aroma of lukewarm coffee wafting from the nurse's lounge. Dr. Chloe Hayes adjusted her white coat for the third time in 5 minutes, a nervous habit she'd developed over years of relentless shifts. Her hands, usually steady when holding a scalpel or administering an IV, subtly trembled as she watched the unusual commotion in the hospital courtyard through the hallway window. Luxury black cars lined the main entrance. Security agents in dark suits were strategically positioned. Local reporters adjusted their gear, testing microphones. It was the day of the official visit to the pediatric ward, one of those social obligations the ultra-rich fulfilled to polish their public image. "Are you all right, Dr. Hayes?" Nurse Maya Reyes, the sweet-voiced charge nurse, pulled her back to reality. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Chloe forced a smile and smoothed her coat again. If she had known what kind of ghost was about to cross that hallway, she might have feigned illness and gone home. "I'm perfectly fine, Maya. Just a little tired. The twins woke up early today." A lie. Liam and Willow had slept soundly, as always. What had frayed her nerves was a strange, fragmented dream, where voices from the past whispered her name in corridors she couldn't identify. One of those dreams that cling to your soul and won't leave, even with strong coffee. The sound of expensive leather shoes clicking down the corridor brought her back. Chloe took a deep breath and walked towards the ward reception, where she was expected to wait for the visitors. The protocol was simple. Greet them, present the facilities, smile for the photos, and say goodbye. 15 minutes of her life. 15 minutes that would change everything. Alexander Vance appeared in the doorway like a haunting mirage. Time had been generous to him. At 34, he retained the same natural elegance she remembered, but now refined by power and maturity. His bespoke designer suit emphasized his upright, almost military posture. His dark brown hair, once perpetually messy from the wind or his own fingers, was now impeccably styled, but it was his eyes that froze her. Those same deep brown eyes she saw every day on Liam's face. For an infinite moment, they stared at each other across the bustling reception, filled with dignitaries, journalists, and hospital staff. The world around them vanished. The murmur of voices became a distant hum. The sterile smell of disinfectant gave way to the phantom scent of the men's cologne he'd worn 7 years ago. Chloe felt her legs shake, her mouth dry, her heart pounding like she was a 22-year-old resident, not a 31-year-old woman, a mother of 2, who had survived 20 24-hour shifts and sleepless nights nursing sick children. "This is Dr. Chloe Hayes, our head of the pediatric ward," the administrative director's voice boomed from a distance. "This is the team that will welcome our distinguished visitors." Alexander took a step forward, and she noticed he too had paled. His hands, once as confident as hers, clenched into discreet fists. His jaw tightened into an expression she knew well. "A pleasure to meet you, Doctor." His voice was hoarser than usual. He extended his hand, and as their fingers touched, an electric current shot up her arm, reaching parts of her heart she thought she had locked away for good. "The pleasure is all mine," Chloe managed to reply, surprised by her own composure. Her voice was steady, professional. Only her eyes betrayed the internal turmoil. It was then that she noticed the woman beside him, Serafina Thorne. She was everything the gossip magazines described. Tall, blonde, with that impeccable beauty that cost fortunes in aesthetic treatments. Her pastel pink dress, clearly chosen for the occasion, matched her designer handbag and shoes. which cost more than Chloe's monthly salary. Serafina smiled for the cameras with the ease of someone born for the spotlight. "Darling, aren't you going to introduce me?" Serafina's voice had that sweet, calculated tone of people accustomed to getting everything through charm. "Of course. Serafina, this is Dr. Hayes. Serafina is my fiancé." Alexander uttered the word fiancé as if it burned his tongue. Chloe smiled and greeted Serafina. But inside, something shattered. It was irrational. She knew it. 7 years had passed. She herself had tried other relationships, but none had lasted more than a few months. How could she expect him to have stopped in time? The unspoken question. The visit followed the rehearsed script. Chloe presented the rooms, explained the procedures, and smiled for the photos. But with every word, she felt Alexander's gaze on her like an unformulated question. He barely paid attention to the explanations. He barely responded to the reporter's questions. He was clearly disturbed. Serafina, on the other hand, played the part of the devoted future wife to Hollywood perfection. She asked questions about the hospitalized children, distributed calculated hugs, and posed next to Alexander with smiles that looked straight out of an ad campaign. "And where are your own children, doctor?" Serafina's question landed like a dagger disguised as interest. "I imagine it's difficult balancing motherhood and medicine." Chloe felt her blood run cold. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Alexander tense. "My children are at school, and yes, it's a daily challenge, but they are my greatest motivation," she replied with dignity, though she secretly wished to be anywhere but there. "How old are they?" Alexander asked, and his voice had a strange quality that made Chloe look up at him. The silence that followed lasted only 3 seconds, but it was loaded with meaning. Chloe saw something stir in the depths of his eyes. A quick calculation, a suspicion beginning to germinate. 7 years old, he repeated, more to himself than to her. If Liam and Willow, this time, Alexander visibly paled. Serafina, oblivious to the tension, continued to make comments about the hallway decor and how well cared for the children looked. The visit ended without further incident. There were official photos, thank yous, and promises of future alliances between the Vance family pharmaceutical group and the hospital. Chloe said goodbye professionally and locked herself in the nurse's restroom as soon as they left. She rested her hands on the sink and looked at herself in the mirror. Her face was pale, but her eyes shone with a mixture of rage and something she didn't want to name. 7 years. 7 years of building a new life, overcoming the pain, gathering the strength to be both a mother and a father. And in 15 minutes, it all resurfaced, like a wound that had never healed properly. The following hours passed at an automatic pace. Consultations, reports, prescriptions. But Chloe's mind was split between the present and that September morning, 7 years ago, when she woke up in the recovery room and knew he had vanished from her life forever. It was almost the end of her shift when the bomb exploded. Chloe was organizing files when she heard a familiar voice in the hallway, a child's voice, full of curiosity, that made her heart leap in her chest. "Mommy, Mommy, you won't believe what happened today." Liam burst into the nurse's station entrance, still in his school uniform, backpack slung over one shoulder. Behind him, Willow walked with her characteristic seriousness, adjusting her glasses as she observed everything around her with scientific interest. "Calm down, Liam. Say hello to everyone first." Chloe chastised her son, but smiled at the sight of them. These two were the reason she managed to get out of bed every morning. "Good afternoon, team." "Mommy, something very weird happened today," Liam began, interrupted by his own excitement. There was a very fancy man here at the hospital. He looked at me funny when he saw me in the cafeteria. He wore a suit and seemed very important. He had the same hair as me, and he froze when he saw me. Auntie Maya even commented that we looked alike. Liam continued innocently. Then he said something strange. He said I looked like your ex-boyfriend. Chloe felt the world spin. Willow, always observant, frowned. Ex-boyfriend? Mummy, you never said you had an ex-boyfriend. It's just adult talk, darling. Let's go home. I'm tired. But Liam, like any curious child, wasn't letting the topic go. The man asked Auntie Maya my name. When she said I was Liam Hayes, he got very serious. Then he asked if I had a daddy. Auntie said no, that you raised us alone. Every word was a dagger. Chloe felt her hands tremble as she gathered her things, trying to maintain composure in front of her children. And guess what else? Liam continued, oblivious to the drama his words caused. He asked where my sister was. Auntie Maya said I had a twin. Then he ran out of there, Mummy. He really ran. He left his blonde girlfriend talking to herself. Chloe closed her eyes. She knew this moment would come one day. She knew the truth couldn't remain buried forever. But she didn't expect it to be so sudden, so devastating. Mummy, are you okay? Willow approached and touched her arm gently. You're pale. I'm fine, my love, just tired. Let's go home. They walked to the parking lot in silence. Chloe tried to organize her thoughts, to prepare for what she knew was coming. Alexander had found out, or at least he suspected. And knowing him as she did, she knew he wouldn't let it go. The car had barely left the parking lot when her mobile rang. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Hello, we need to talk. Alexander's voice was cold, controlled, but charged with an intensity she knew well. Not now, Alexander, Now, Chloe, he repeated, and something in the way he pronounced her name made her tremble. I'll be at the hospital in 20 minutes, in the car park. The call ended abruptly. Chloe looked into the rearview mirror at her children. Liam was playing with a toy car in the back seat. Willow was reading a book about dinosaurs, both oblivious to the hurricane about to unleash upon their lives. She knew there was no escaping it now. The truth, after 7 years in hiding, was about to come to light. And for the first time since she had become a mother, Chloe didn't know if she would have the strength to protect what she loved most in the world. Her phone vibrated again, a message. They are my children, aren't they? Chloe parked the car in the home garage. She turned off the engine and remained motionless for long seconds, hands on the steering wheel, eyes closed, her heart pounding fiercely. 7 years of silence were about to break, and she had no idea how she could explain to her children that the father they never knew had appeared in their lives like a ghost from the past. She had tried to forget, but she had never been able to completely erase him from her heart. What do you think Alexander will do now that he's confronted with the truth about his children? Will Chloe finally reveal the full extent of their past? Share your predictions in the comments below. The Broken Vow. Fan 2-3. The Confrontation. The St. Michael's Medical Center car park was almost empty when Chloe arrived. Only a few night guards' cars, and parked right in the center, under the yellowish glow of the street lamp, was Alexander's black Mercedes. She could see him through the rear window, his silhouette tense, his hands nervously running through his hair in a gesture she knew so well. She had left the twins with Mrs. Green, the beloved neighbor who always helped in emergencies. She invented an excuse about an urgent surgery, but Willow looked at her with that distrustful expression she had inherited from Alexander, though she didn't know it. "Mummy, are you sure everything is okay?" the girl had asked, adjusting her glasses as she observed her mother's worried face. "Everything is fine, my love. It's just work." Chloe had kissed her daughter's forehead, inhaling the sweet smell of children's shampoo that always calmed her. "Take care of each other, all right? I'll be back soon." But now, standing by her own car, she gathered the courage to face the man she had loved more than her own life and who had abandoned her when she needed him most. Alexander got out of the Mercedes as soon as he saw her. Even under the dim light of the car park, she could see the tension in every line of his body. He had exchanged his elegant suit for dark jeans and a navy polo shirt with rolled-up sleeves. He looked more accessible that way, more like the man she had known 7 years ago. "Thank you for coming," he said, stopping a few meters away, as if he didn't trust himself to get closer. "I didn't have a choice, from what I understand." Chloe crossed her arms, more for protection than coldness. "What do you want, Alexander?" "I want the truth. I need to know if Liam and Willow are your children." "You mean your children?" She completed the question he couldn't formulate. "Is that what you want to know?" Alexander closed his eyes for a moment, as if the words were a stab. "My God, Chloe, they are. I saw it on the boy's face. I saw it in every feature, every expression. How could you hide this from me?" The rage she had kept stored for 7 years exploded like a broken dam. "How could I hide it? How dare you ask me this after abandoning me when I needed you most?" "Abandoning you? What are you talking about?" Alexander faced her with genuine confusion. "You were the one who disappeared. You lost the babies, and you just vanished from my life." "I lost the babies?" Her voice came out as an incredulous whisper. "I lost the babies? Alexander, what are you talking about? I was told that—" She stopped, an expression of horror beginning to form on his face. "I was told you'd lost the pregnancy, that you were devastated, and decided to distance yourself from everything and everyone, that you didn't want to see me anymore." Chloe felt her legs tremble. She needed to lean on the car hood not to fall. "Who told you that?" "My mother. Sarah. She went to the hospital when she heard you had collapsed. She—" Alexander's voice trailed off as the truth began to unfold in his mind. "She told me she had spoken to you, that you were heartbroken, that you didn't want me to suffer too." "Your mother lied, Alexander." The words came out charged with pain so old it felt physical. "I never lost the babies. I tried to find you. I tried to call you, message you, talk to your friends. All contacts were blocked. I thought you had decided you didn't want me anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. Alexander ran his hands through his hair. He paced back and forth like a caged animal, processing the magnitude of what he had discovered. "She couldn't have," he murmured, more to himself. "My own mother couldn't have done that." "She could, and she did." Chloe wiped away a tear that insisted on flowing. "For 7 years, I raised our children alone because I thought you had rejected me. For 7 years, they asked about their father, and I didn't know what to answer, because I didn't understand how you had simply disappeared." Alexander stopped pacing and confronted her. Under the yellowish light of the street lamp, she could see tears glistening in his eyes. "Chloe, I swear by everything sacred that I didn't know. If you had known, if you had known you were pregnant, that they existed, what would you have done?" His voice trembled between rage and desperation. "Would you have defied your mother? Would you have taken responsibility for a poor resident who wasn't up to the Brooks Vance world?" "I would have married you." The answer was quick, categorical, like a gunshot. "I would have married you that very day and faced the whole world if necessary." Chloe felt her heart stop for a moment. For 7 years, she had wondered what his reaction would have been. For 7 years, she had oscillated between imagining he would flee in fear or embrace her with joy. She had never considered the answer could be so simple, so direct. "But that's not what happened," she said softly. "And now it's too late. It's too late for us." "It is," Alexander agreed, taking a step toward her. "But it's not too late for them. My children, Chloe. Our children grew up for 7 years without knowing they have a father who would have loved them from the first second." "They don't need you now." The phrase came out more defensively than she intended. "We are fine. We managed on our own." "I'm sure you did." Alexander smiled for the first time since he arrived. A sad smile, full of pride and remorse. Just by seeing them, I can tell you're an incredible mother. Liam has that genuine curiosity, that joy that lights up a room. Willow has an adorable seriousness, that way of observing. They're perfect. You observed them, Chloe frowned. When the boy appeared in the cafeteria today, I froze. It was like seeing myself in a mirror of the past. And then, when I found out he had a twin sister, Alexander shook his head. I knew something wasn't right. I started adding up the dates, the ages, it all fit. And what do you intend to do now? The question came out charged with fear. Suddenly appear in their lives and turn everything upside down? I don't know. His honesty surprised her. I just know I can't simply pretend it didn't happen. They are my children, Chloe, my blood, my responsibility. And you? He hesitated, as if the next words were too dangerous to be spoken. You are still the woman I loved most in my life. No. Chloe shook her head vehemently. Don't do that. Don't bring the past back as if nothing happened. I'm no longer that naive girl who fell in love with you. I've grown. I've matured. I've learned to survive without you. I know, and that's exactly why. I'm still in love with you. The words hung in the air between them, like a dangerous confession. Chloe felt her chest tighten. Her breath hitched. For 7 years, she had dreamed of hearing those words. For 7 years, she had imagined what it would be like if he came back, if he discovered the truth, if he apologized. But now that the moment had arrived, she could only feel fear. You're engaged, Alexander, she reminded him, trying to cling to reality. Serafina seems like a lovely woman. Don't ruin your life for a ghost from the past. Serafina is a family arrangement. The bitterness in his voice was unmistakable. After you disappeared, my mother started pressuring me to marry for business. Serafina is the daughter of one of the partners in the pharmaceutical group. It's a strategic alliance, not a romance. And you accepted? I had given up believing in true love. I thought you were the only chance I had to be truly happy. When I thought I'd lost you, I agreed to live a convenient life. But now I know you're alive, that my children are alive, that everything worth living for still exists. He extended his hand slowly, touching her face with his fingertips. How can I keep pretending it doesn't matter? Chloe closed her eyes, and for a moment, she allowed herself to feel the familiar touch, the texture of his skin, the warmth that had always calmed her. But reality quickly brought her back. And your children, Alexander. She pulled away from his touch. Have you thought about what this means for them? They are not pets you can visit when you feel like it. They are children, with feelings, fears, needs. That's why I'm here. The seriousness in his voice was absolute. I don't want to be a weekend visitor in their lives. I want to be a father, a real father. They don't even know you exist. So let me change that little by little the right way. Alexander looked at her with an intensity that reminded her of how he used to look at her when they planned their future. Give me a chance to meet them, to earn the place that is legitimately mine. Chloe felt the weight of the decision on her shoulders. On one hand, she knew Liam and Willow deserved to know their father. On the other, she feared they would become attached and then be abandoned again. I need to think about it, she finally said. I need time to process all this. How much time? I don't know. She walked back to her own car. Just don't show up in their lives without my knowledge, okay? If you really want to do this right, then respect me enough to include me in the decisions. Agreed. Alexander nodded. But Chloe, I won't give up. Not this time. She stopped with her hand on the car door and looked over her shoulder. And Serafina, I will end the engagement. It's not fair to her to pretend I feel something I don't. The answer came without hesitation. I should have done it a long time ago. Chloe got into the car without responding and drove away. In the rearview mirror, she saw Alexander standing in the middle of the car park, hands in his pockets, watching her leave. He looked as lost as she felt. The drive back home passed like a blur. When she arrived, Mrs. Green informed her that the children had eaten dinner and were already asleep. Chloe thanked her neighbor and entered the house silently. She walked to the twins' room and stood at the door, watching them sleep. Liam was face down, arms outstretched, his breathing deep and peaceful. Willow slept on her side, hugging the teddy bear she received on her 5th birthday, her glasses carefully folded on the bedside table. They were her children, her babies. For 7 years, she had been everything to them. Mother, father, provider, comforter, teacher. For 7 years, she had functioned perfectly well without Alexander Vance, but looking at them now, she could see his features that she had tried to ignore. The shape of Liam's ears, Willow's jawline, the way they both frowned when concentrating. They had a right to know their father, and Alexander had a right to know them. But she also had the right to protect them from another possible disappointment. Chloe left the room and poured herself a cup of tea, sitting at the kitchen table, where she used to help her children with homework. The house was silent, but her mind was a whirlwind of contradictory thoughts. It was then that the phone rang again. This time, she recognized the number. "Alexander, I'm sorry to call so late. I just need you to know one thing." His voice was different, more determined. "I just spoke to my mother." Chloe felt her stomach clench. "And I confronted her with the truth. She confessed everything." The rage in Alexander's voice was palpable. "She really made you believe that I no longer wanted to see you. She blocked all means of communication. She fabricated the story about you losing the babies, all to keep me away from you. Why?" The question came out as a whisper of error. "Because you weren't good enough for a Vance. Because she thought you were after the family money. Because she wanted to control my life and choose my wife." Every word sounded like broken glass. "She destroyed 7 years of our lives out of pure prejudice and lust for power." Chloe closed her eyes, feeling a mix of relief and rage. Relief at finally knowing the truth. Rage at having been so cruelly manipulated. "What are you going to do?" "First, I'm going to end any influence she has over my life. Second, I'm going to end this ridiculous engagement. And third," he paused, "I'm going to do everything in my power to make up for the lost time with my children. And if you let me, with you." "Chloe, I know I can't just erase 7 years of pain. I know I can't go back in time and be present when you needed me. But I can start now. I can be the father they deserve, and the man you deserve. If you give me a chance." Chloe held the phone tighter, fighting the emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. "I need time, Alexander, and you need to understand that this isn't just about us two. They are the ones who matter now, okay? Completely." The answer came without hesitation. "All I want is to know my children. We'll figure out the rest calmly." After the call ended, Chloe remained sitting in the kitchen until very late, processing everything that had happened. 7 years of her life had been built on a lie. 7 years of forced independence, emotional loneliness, unanswered questions. But also 7 years of growth, strength, and discovering that she was capable of much more than she imagined. Now, for the first time in a long time, the future was a blank page. And she didn't know if that excited her or terrified her. What do you think will be the biggest challenge for Chloe and Alexander as they try to rebuild their family? How will the children react to the complete truth? Share your insights and predictions. For Always and One Day More, Fan 33, A New Beginning, The Threat, and The Trial. 3 weeks passed since the revelation in the hospital car park. 3 weeks of cautious conversations, gradual rapprochement, and discoveries that changed everything every day. 3 weeks in which Chloe slept poorly, ate little, and constantly relived every word exchanged with Alexander that night that changed everything. During those days, she had observed her children with an almost scientific attention, looking for signs that they were missing something, that there was a void in their lives that needed to be filled. Liam was still the cheerful child he always was, running through the hospital corridors, making friends with all the staff, laughing loud and unreservedly. Willow maintained her characteristic seriousness, but Chloe had noticed she had started asking more questions about families, about fathers, about how people met and married. It was as if, by instinct, they knew something important was about to happen. Chloe had decided to tell the children the truth, but gradually, respecting each one's processing time. She started by explaining that their father hadn't abandoned them, but that a very serious misunderstanding had separated them for years. Sometimes bad people do ugly things to separate people who love each other. Chloe chose her words carefully. Your father never knew you existed because someone lied to him. Someone lied? Liam stopped playing, his eyes wide. But lying is bad. Very bad, my love. And that's why you grew up without knowing him. And where is he now? Willow's question came charged with a seriousness that broke Chloe's heart. He wants to meet you. He wants to be a real daddy. But I need to be sure that you want that too. Is he handsome? Liam suddenly asked, making Chloe smile. Very handsome. You look a lot like him. And is he good? Willow turned to her mother, a rare vulnerability shining in her eyes behind her glasses. Very good. The best I've ever known. If he was sad when he thought we died, then he must love us, right? Liam's childlike logic was irrefutable. Yes, my love. Then let's meet him. Liam clapped excitedly. Can it be today? It can't be today, Liam. These things take time, Willow replied. She looked at her mother with a wisdom that didn't fit her age. But we can meet him little by little, right, Mummy? Yes, my darling. And so it began. The first meeting took place at the park, 2 blocks from the hospital. Neutral ground, where the children would feel comfortable, and where Chloe could control the situation if necessary. Alexander arrived punctually at 3 on a sunny Saturday, with a football and a bubble kit. Simple gifts that showed he had thought carefully about what would be appropriate for a first meeting. Is that him? Liam whispered, following his mother's gaze. That's him. Wow, I look a lot like him, the boy exclaimed excitedly. Look, Willow, even the eyebrow is the same. Willow observed Alexander with her usual scientific intensity, cataloging similarities and differences. Hello? Alexander said, stopping at a respectful distance. His voice trembled slightly on the first word. You must be Willow and Liam. I'm Liam. The boy stepped forward without a trace of shyness. My mummy said you're our daddy. Is that true? The direct question made Alexander swallow. He looked quickly at Chloe, who nodded, encouraging him. It's true. Yes, I am your father. And hers too, he replied, looking at Willow with affection. But why didn't you come to see us before? Willow's question came charged with seriousness, not reproach, just genuine curiosity. Because I didn't know you existed. Alexander knelt to their height. Someone lied to me and told me you hadn't been born. It was the biggest lie I've ever been told in my life, because you are the most important thing that has ever happened to me. The simple and honest answer seemed to satisfy Liam, who smiled openly. But it was Willow who asked the next question, always more cautious. And now you're going to boss us around? No, Willow. Your mummy is the one who bosses you around. She's the one who knows what's best for you, because she's the one who has taken care of you until now. I just want to be a part of your lives, if you let me. Can you tell stories? Liam approached interestedly. I know some. I can invent others. Invent one now, the boy asked. Alexander looked around, searching for inspiration. His eyes stopped on a butterfly that had landed on a nearby flower. Once upon a time, there was a very special butterfly, he began. It was different from all the other butterflies because it had 2 colors instead of 1. Blue on one side yellow on the other. Like me and Willow, Liam interrupted excitedly. We're twins, but different. Exactly like you. Alexander smiled. The blue and yellow butterfly flew around the garden, looking for other butterflies just like her. But she never found them. Until one day she discovered that she didn't need to find others like her. She just needed to find someone who loved her just the way she was. And did she find it? Willow asked quietly. Yes, she found it. She found a whole family that loved her. The mummy butterfly, who had always known she was special, and the daddy butterfly, who had been away for a long time. But he came back because he couldn't live without her. And did they stay together forever? Liam wanted to know the end. They stayed together for always and one day more, Alexander replied, looking directly at Chloe. The phrase resonated with something she used to say to the children, and she wondered if he remembered it, or if it was just a coincidence. Do you want to play with us? Liam asked, apparently satisfied with the story. And so, in the middle of the park, surrounded by the sound of other children playing and the smell of freshly cut grass, a family began to form. The betrayal and the unexpected hero. The weeks that followed brought more meetings, each one revealing new layers of Alexander's personality as a father and deepening the bonds that were forming. He was a natural. He ran after the ball with Liam, laughed when the boys scored a goal in their impromptu game, and patiently listened as Willow explained the differences between the types of leaves she collected. Daddy, Liam said suddenly, trying the word on his tongue. Can I call you Daddy? Alexander stopped mid-movement, a half-formed soap bubble on the wand he held, his eyes filled with tears he tried to hide, blinking quickly. Of course you can. It would be the greatest honor of my life. Daddy, Liam repeated, liking the sound. Daddy, you're going to come and play with us always. As long as your mummy lets me. Mummy will let you. Right, Mummy? Liam turned to Chloe, who was fighting back her own tears. Yes, my love. But Seraphina's thirst for revenge proved to be much deeper and more dangerous than anyone could imagine. Alexander's ex-fiancée did not take the end of the engagement well. When Alexander sought her out to explain the situation, she had reacted with a fury that surprised even him. You're ending our engagement for some random doctor and two brats that aren't even yours, she had screamed, throwing the engagement ring at his face with such force it left a red mark on his forehead. The suggestion hit him like a punch to the stomach, not because he doubted Chloe's honesty, but because Seraphina had planted a seed he knew she would use against them. If you lay a finger on her or the children, I will destroy you. And that's exactly what happened. 2 weeks later, Chloe received an official notification from the British Medical Association. She was under investigation for medical negligence in a case from 2 years ago, a baby who had been admitted with pneumonia during one of her shifts, and who, according to the complaint, had not received the proper treatment. The investigation developed rapidly, driven by expensive lawyers and witnesses who changed their versions of the facts for a payment. In 3 weeks, Chloe saw her professional reputation systematically destroyed. It was Alexander who discovered the truth. My mother and Seraphina are working together, he said, bursting into her apartment one rainy Thursday night. They hired private investigators, bribed witnesses. They're doing everything possible to ruin you professionally. Why? Chloe was exhausted, because if you lose your medical license, if your reputation is destroyed, they can sue for custody of the children, alleging financial and emotional instability. Chloe's blood ran cold. I won't lose them! You won't. He approached. He cupped her face in his hands. I swear by everything sacred that I won't let that happen. Alexander fulfilled his promise. He hired the best lawyers in London, private detectives to investigate the irregularities in the accusations, and psychologists to testify about Chloe's emotional stability and the children's well-being. But the one who truly changed the course of the process was Willow. On the day of the final hearing at the Royal Courts of Justice, the courtroom was packed. The process had been underway for 2 hours, when the lawyer for Alexander's mother, Sarah Vance, began his final argument. Your Honor, we are here to protect two innocent children from a situation that can harm their emotional and social development. The claimant, Dr. Chloe Hayes, despite her professional qualifications, has demonstrated significant emotional instability. First, she concealed the existence of the minors from the biological father for 7 years, depriving them of the constitutional right to know their father. It was then that Willow got up from her chair. The girl was already walking down the central aisle of the courtroom. Her small, determined steps echoed in the absolute silence that settled. Your Honor, she said, stopping in front of the judge's bench, her voice clear despite her nervousness. I want to speak. What is your name, dear? Judge Henderson asked softly. Willow Hayes. I'm 7 years old, and I want to talk about my mummy. You may speak, child, but remember, you must always tell the truth. I always tell the truth, Willow replied, adjusting her glasses with her characteristic gesture. My mummy taught me that lying is bad. Some people here are saying that my mummy doesn't take good care of me and my brother. But they are lying. Mummy is someone who loves us even when we are naughty. Mummy is someone who worries when we come home late from school. Mummy is someone who cries with us when we are sad and laughs with us when we are happy. Mummy is someone who works hard, so we have what we need, but she never complains. The room was in absolute silence. Even the lawyers had stopped moving their papers. Now I also have a daddy, and I'm very happy. He is good and tells funny stories. Willow looked at Alexander with affection. But the one who raised me, the one who taught me who I am, the one who was with me every day of my life, was her. She pointed to Chloe. If someone wants to take custody away from her, then they can take my life too, because I belong to her, and I always will. The judge hit the gavel with determination. Case dismissed for lack of consistent evidence. Custody remains with the mother, Dr. Chloe Hayes. And I publicly declare that any new attempt at judicial persecution against this family will be viewed as abuse of the judicial system and may result in sanctions for those responsible. Chloe collapsed in tears. Alexander hugged her right there, in front of everyone. Liam ran to join the embrace, followed by Willow, who finally allowed her own tears to fall. The final promise. I have a proposal for you, Alexander said on a Sunday afternoon, 3 months after the trial. They were at Chloe's apartment, watching a movie while the children played in their room. Alexander got up from the sofa and, to her complete surprise, knelt on the living room floor, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Marry me. Chloe almost dropped the bowl of popcorn. Marry me. Not out of obligation, not out of convenience, not because it's expected. Marry me because I love you, because I have always loved you, because I want to spend the rest of my life making up for the time we lost. Alexander, I know it's complicated. I know you're afraid. I know 7 years of pain don't disappear overnight. And if it doesn't work out, and if you get tired of us, and if your family pressures you again, my family is the 3 of you. The answer came without hesitation, firm as a promise carved in stone. The rest of the world can say what they want. You are my family, my life, my happiness. And as for the fear of it not working out, he touched her face gently. I'm scared too. Scared of not being a good father, of not being able to make up for lost time, of not deserving a second chance. But I prefer to be scared by your side than brave away from you. Before she could answer, a familiar voice echoed through the apartment. Daddy! Daddy! Willow said you're going to marry Mummy! Is it true? Liam appeared running into the living room. Mummy, do you want to marry Daddy? Willow asked, with her characteristic seriousness. Chloe looked around at Alexander, with his eyes full of hope and unconditional love. At Liam, jumping with excitement. At Willow, serious and observant, but with a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She realized that what would be best for them would also be best for her. "Yes," she finally said, her voice steady despite the tears. "Yes, I do." "Now you're going to be together for always?" Lily asked, always needing to confirm the important details. "For always." "One day more," Chloe replied. 6 months later, in a simple ceremony in the garden of the house they bought together in Hampstead, Dr. Chloe Hayes became Dr. Evelyn Brooks. "Evelyn," Alexander said in his vows, "you taught me that love is not about finding the perfect person, but about perfectly loving the person you find. You showed me that family is not defined by blood or DNA, but by choice, dedication, and daily presence. I promise to be present. I promise to choose you every day. I promise to love our children with the intensity they deserve, and with the gratitude of someone who almost lost what matters most." When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the kiss was watched by 2 children, who applauded enthusiastically without any gross this time. "Mommy!" Willow appeared by her side when the music stopped, still in her bridesmaid dress, but with her shoes in her hands, because they were tight. "Are we a real family now?" "We were always a real family, my love." Chloe kissed her daughter's forehead. "Only now we are a complete family, and we're going to be together for always, and one day more." What was the most moving moment in Chloe and Alexander's journey for you? How do you feel about the profound transformation their family experienced? Share your final reflections on their inspiring story. Don't forget to like and share this video if you believe in second chances.